Hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can make your own patterns from a duct tape and coating on your very own lasts. You can use whatever last you like. In this instance, I have a size 9.5D Vienna last from protohub.com. Unfortunately, not a sponsor. So first off, we're going to start with two major things. We're going to start with paper, a lot of it. Loose leaf or copy paper is fine. Just make sure it's cheap and you have a lot of it. And we're going to be using duct tape. So first off, we kind of want to get our blockiness and our large sections of the last covered. So we're going to start with our first piece of paper, and then we're just going to cover as much as we can, however we can. Don't worry about trying to be too smooth right now. We're just getting these first bits of paper on. And of course, work in your lap as much as you can, because that way you have the most steady control. Now we're going to take our first piece of duct tape, and we're going to cut it. Not tear, cut. We want things to be clean here. So just start that off, and then you have that piece secured. Always keep your tab open a little bit there, and move on to your next piece of paper. This time we're going to start from the bottom. Work our way up to here. As you go, just squish along. Because right now we're just getting the rough shape of the last out of the way before we start going into finer details. There it is. Grab your next piece of tape. Have that on standby. Go through there, and from there for that. Pull back a little so that you have some tension there. Push down, and then you're going to do that to start getting some folds in. That will help gradually fit everything better to the shape of the last. Grab the next piece of tape. Tug. Try not to get too many wrinkles in the duct tape itself, because those will be harder to work out in the final stages. So with the paper you can be as rough as you want. With the tape, be a bit more careful. And here we go for the heel. Fold in, get that polished up, then fold up, fold up, and then we tape. Alrighty, so we have the base paper layers. love saying that. So now we go into finer shaping. This is where you start being a bit more forceful with the paper, and we really start getting everything become a bit more smooth to it. Like here, you can see we just pressed and pressed here, and we made a fold. And to come in along the arch, we want that to be kept. So we tape on it. Now, by the end, we're going to have this entire thing covered in duct tape. So, do not be stingy with your duct tape. There's a reason that this is a good method to use to try out new patterns and to make new patterns at a flash. Because both the paper and the tape are cheap. Now, if you don't have duct tape, I think you can go with packing tape, but honestly, with duct tape you can see what you're doing a lot better than with packing tape. And Sharpie sticks to it a lot better than packing tape. So yeah. Now, see in the next couple of seconds as I time lapse. And there we have it. Next step, drawing on the design. Now, you're gonna generally want to have an idea of what you want for your shoe. For the design already in mind, or have a stock image pulled up, because this is going to be a very important part. Basically, you're going to take your Sharpie and you're going to start drawing the pieces that you want on it. So let's say for this, we'll give it a toe cap, make it toe cap Oxford style. Except I'm not going to make this a classical dress shoe. This is just going to be some craziness here. Now make sure to continue this all the way into the bottom. And before we go any further, I'd like to give you an important piece of advice for this. Always start planning out how far you want your piece to go down. How far down you want your pattern to go in order to have enough room for welting. I generally give mine about a rough estimate of about 1/2 inch, so that I don't have to calculate this later on when drafting out the actual pieces later. Now you might be asking, what do you mean drafting out the actual pieces? We're drafting out the pieces right now, aren't we? No, we're doing the rough pieces. The 2 last pieces, as it would be. The pieces that don't have any accountability for stitch lengths. Now let's see, what do we want here? Let's say we want a heel, kind of like a work boot-ish kind of thing, so very long heel. We'll carry this out through. About here. Then we kind of match the feel of the curve. Yeah, that feels about right. It's a little lopsided, but it'll do. It's a shoe. Now we go say we wanted that. Yeah. That looks about right. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more like this. Alright, so, yeah. Forgot to mention, keep in mind what profile you want the top of your shoe to have. So I always kind of go for that swerving up profile that you often see in a lot of dress shoes and sneakers and a lot of shoes generally. And this last generally tends to follow that line pretty well in the extended alpha joint, so I often go with that. So now we've defined that. Let's make it easy on ourselves. When you do these kinds of things, start thinking piecewise. What do you want your shoe or boot to do? So, kind of continuing with that work boot-esque thing we got going on there. Let's go with this. Alright. So yeah. Now we just mark these out as... Always make the first letter of your annotations the side that it's going to be, so you have your everything in order. So we've got our right toe cap, RTB for bridge, RTT for tongue, RHC for right heel back. Don't mind that. RB for back. Makes sense in context. RIQ for quarters. And ROQ for quarter. Inner and outer. Oh, no. That would be vamps. My bad. Vamp. So ROV and RIV. Then we got RIQ and ROQ. There. Now we're ready for cutting. Alright. So, now that we've gotten our pieces marked out and conglomerated, now we cut. So just take an X-Acto knife, or whatever sharp implement you have that's not going to hurt you, because you are a good leather crafter, and always keep your sharp blade, because sharp knife is safe knife. Then you're just going to follow your own lines. Try not to make it too janky, because otherwise it's going to be a pain to clean up. Lastly, make sure that you've got everything else cut before you cut this last bit. Because if you've got everything else cut before cutting this last bit, then everything will start coming apart beautifully. Otherwise, you're going to be having to fight the bottom of the shoe pattern while you're trying to cut the toe cap. Because, yeah, that's a bit of a pain. Now, there's going to be something pretty common that's going to happen to you. You're going to have a lot of excess paper on the backs of your pattern pieces. Simple fix, just snip it off. Go to the points where it won't stick no more. Make sure you're covering the parts that are still duct tape essentialed. Just clip around that, so you get yourself some nice back. Proceed to continue your cleanup of your pieces. Now these don't have to be perfect. They're the rough pieces after all. But try not to damage the outer edges too much. Alrighty. Now you have the rough pieces cleaned and cut out. What's next? We can't flatten these curves. So, we are going to carefully, very cautiously, snip. I'm going to add to the toe plate first. And the outer pieces until you are able to flatten them. Don't worry, this isn't how your pattern is going to look like later. I promise. Now just set that off to the side and continue with... Now we are going to set down our pieces in between heavy flat objects such as books so that we can get these flattened and all nice and ready for traceability. And so yeah, leave them like that for overnight, or at least 4 hours. The longer, the better. Alright, now that we have our flattened pieces, it's time to start making the more refined parts of the pattern. Keep your rough pieces with you, like package them up separately after you're done with this step. But this is where we basically put in our seam allowances. So we're going to take our bits and pieces from that, for example. Now you're gonna just do. You gotta follow that. That. So basically this is so that we can have our nice seam meet up over here and then cover that seam with this. We're also going to take that and extend it. But first off we're going to adjust it. Alright, so that'll be our base seam allowances for that piece. Now I just trace where that is, and where that is. So now, we start going in for our seam allowance. Go for a nice wide seam allowance, if you can. I'd say about about a third to half an inch for seam allowances. Around that range should give you enough room for hand or machine stitching and not miss. Remember, we're going to be doing this on both sides of that. Now, what do you do when you run out of room for seam allowance here? Well, that's quite simple. You are going to grab a piece of paper, snip off an extra bit, grab a wee little bit of duct tape, and yeah, just kind of slap it on there. It'll be fine. Alrighty. Now always make sure that you label. We've got ourselves the ROQ and RIQ. Enter and outer quarters. And set your pieces off to the side. Now for this one, it's going to be a bit trickier because we're tracing around this, yes. But we're also going to give this its own seam allowance. On the bottom. Again, make it about half an inch, and about a third to half an inch. Actually, let's double check my measurements on that to make sure that I'm not misleading you guys. Yeah, about a third of an inch. Now for this piece here, we're actually also going to extend it. Why are we extending it? It's so that we can fold this over the bottom and over the back of the shoe and make a nice clean seam without any chance of splitting. Now we have B. Place off to the side. Now, mark where the tongue ends. Now we're going to go a little bit angled outwards. Try to stay at least a little bit symmetrical. And now, create a nice little curve. so we have that. Alright, so for your toe cap, you're going to want to be extra generous with that extra curvature space. So over here we have ourselves that. And now you're going to want to mark where that is. And go to about there. Make sure to follow within that nice bit of branching you got there. Keeping it as close as you can. There you go, you got your toe cap. Alrighty. So, since this is going to be going over everything, just again, follow that shape, but make sure you clean it up as much as you can. And we're going to be following most the same. So now we just clean up those little bumps from the paper I missed. Alrighty. So now comes the even more fun part. We're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna cover these areas with duct tape. I told you you're gonna need a lot of this. So measure out roughly how much you're gonna want to cover in that area. Again, try not to waste too much materials. Now you're going to be covering the back side of it. And this serves two purposes. One, you're going to be able to still see the pattern that you've drafted. And two, it's going to make it easier. You're going to reuse this pattern that you've created over and over again. Yeah, I'm not teaching you how to make one-time use patterns. Once you make these patterns, you can frickin' recreate them however many times you like. Again, part of the reason you're gonna want to keep those rough patterns. Yep, and that is covered. Alrighty. Now that you have your pieces sufficiently duct tape backed, it's time to cut your clean pieces. Now, because these are the clean pieces, you're gonna want to keep these cuts nice and, well, clean. So take your time and be careful when cutting these. You do not want to mess up. Because while you can recreate patterns, I don't think you want to have wasted all this work just to go off and do it again. Now do you? So now you've got your pieces all nice and cut out. There's a couple extra steps. Namely, you get to label the back of them now. In Sharpie. And so basically you're gonna do the same thing you did over here, except for the left side. So RHC will become LHC. This way, you can mirror the pattern and use it for the other last. So RTC becomes LTC. RTB becomes LTB. And left tongue. And that's not even the last bit. There's still one step remaining. Take your trusty X-Acto knife, and you find a suitable piece of board that you can cut on without damaging your work surface. You carve in a couple of guidelines to help mark where your seam allowances are. Trust me, you're gonna want to do this. Comes through on the other side, like a charm. Repeat with the rest of the pieces, and then we can move on to packaging them. So now we move on to packaging the rough pieces. And you can do the same thing for the finished pieces, but usually I tend to immediately make something out of the finished pieces, so I don't usually package them until I'm done cutting out the pieces for the actual shoe. But here we are. So you're going to gather up all your rough pieces that you have from the side. Get it nice and flat as you can. Grab your second piece of paper. Line up your corners as best you can. Fold. Duct tape. Then just pack off the corners. Take a Sharpie, note down what style. Let's just call this boot-inspired toe cap. Always note what type of last you have made this from. So Vienna last 9.5D size. And then top it off with your signature. You can also add in your logo here, but I'm not going to do that right now. Alrighty, and so yeah, now you have yourself a homemade pattern. Hey guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful, especially if you are a beginner in shoe craft or have a friend that's doing shoe craft and you wanted to make patterns for them, or you wanted to give them a good resource for getting started in the craft. Yeah, I'm hoping to make this into a tutorial series on shoecraft. Probably gonna call it The Path of the Shoemaker or something. I don't know. But yeah, if you like the video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and comment below what you think I should do next for any of my videos. Whether it be a cosplay piece from, say, Genshin Impact, like a Vision, or Zhongli's coat. Please, I'd really like your input. Until then, keep crafting.